Morning, learners. Today, we are going to be continuing with our lessons, and our lesson is still going to be on settlement. Today, we are focusing on rural settlement. So we are focusing mostly on the issues in the rural settlements, issues in settlements, why people move from rural areas and go and settle in the urban areas. So we are going to look at those aspects today. And before I go any further, I want to remind you that these lessons are sponsored by VT Africa with their companies like Fibotech and Vastratech. So let's go on and see. Also, for those ones who are joining us today for the first time, you need to log in to the website www.hellosmart.com to take part in the assessment. Sign up as a guest, and the ID number, the ID that you have to enter is 598751 as written here on the board. Please don't forget to add your name. Let's go ahead and look into the lesson of today without wasting time. So as I alluded to, we are looking at rural and urban settlements and rural and urban settlements issues. That's what we're focusing on. So let's go ahead and look at our vocabulary. This is the vocabulary that we're going to be looking at. I hope everyone here is actually seeing what is on the board. I want you to take note of these vocabularies and then make sure that as we are going through the lesson, you understand the meanings of the vocabulary. The table of contents today in this lesson, we are going to be looking at rural-urban migration, as I mentioned earlier on, causes and consequences of rural depopulation on people and the economy, the effects of rural depopulation and strategies to address them, social justice issues. Let's make use of these highlighters as we go through, right? So we are looking at rural-urban migration, then causes of the depopulation of people and the economy. And we are going to look at effects of rural depopulation and strategies to address them. Then we are also going to look at social justice in the rural areas, access to resources, and land reform. After that, we'll be done with the lesson for today, and we are going to do a formative assessment that we are going to go to do together. So let's go ahead and look at the following slides. Rural settlement issues. Let's look at migration now. What is migration? Right? When we talk of migration, we're talking of the movement of people from one area to another. So when we say rural urban migration, we are saying people are moving from the rural areas and going to settle in the urban areas. So what the trend that we have seen in human history is that more and more people move from rural areas to urban areas as the countries develop. There are various push and pull factors. So there is a push and a pull factor. So what pushes people away is what is undesirable that they see in the area of their settlement. And that makes them go elsewhere. And what pulls people to a certain area, like in the urban areas, it is what is attractive in that area that they want to go and have or want to go and enjoy. So those are the push and pull factors. So we talk of push and pull factors, which are responsible for this movement. This results in the number of people living in urban areas increasing dramatically and the number of people living in rural areas decreasing. The phenomenon is known as rural depopulation. So take note of this. When people move from rural areas and there are less people in the rural areas and there are more people in the urban areas, that is what is called the rural depopulation, which means the population in the rural areas is going down. Then we do have definition of terms here. Rural urban migration, which is movement of people from rural to urban areas in hope for better opportunities. What are the opportunities that we're talking about here? We've got better health opportunities. We know that there are better health services in the cities, better education opportunities. Most universities are actually situated in the cities. You need better employment opportunities, high-paying jobs, and better jobs are found in the cities, and people want to settle there. Then the definition of rural, this is a settlement that is focusing on primary activities with smaller population, and it's in the countryside. Urban settlements are focusing on a range of economic activities. We did this. Push factors, these are negative factors. That's what I was saying, that these are undesirable factors. So they are negative factors that give the reasons for people to move from one area to another. Then the pull factors, these are positive factors. For instance, better education, better healthcare facilities that actually attract people to the urban areas. So these act as the magnet to the urban areas. Then the rural depopulation, it is the decrease in the number of people living in the rural areas. Right, rural settlement issues, we want to look at the causes of rural depopulation on people and the economy. What are the causes? Because for anything to happen, there must be causes. And once there is everything has happened, then we do have the results. So we're also going to look at the effects. What are the after effects of all these things happening? So causes of rural depopulation on people and the economy. The reasons or causes of people moving out of rural areas and into urban areas are referred to as push and pull factors. Push factors are the negative factors people perceive. So when we say perceive, we mean what people understand and are pushing people to leave rural areas, whereas pull factors are the positive factors. So these are positive, and the push factors are negative. These positive factors are the ones that pull or attract people to the urban areas. Job opportunities in rural areas are decreasing, and the residents have the perception that urban areas offer more opportunities and a better life. And this leads to rural depopulation. So to perceive is to interpret or regard something in a certain way. We have very nice pictures here. I want you to look at these pictures, and you see that these pictures are showing us these pictures. This picture here is showing us a rural settlement. You can see how it looks there. You have got homes that are spaced, that are displaced far from each other. And when you look at this, you see there is a homestead here, there is another homestead. These are a bit close, but those other ones are far from the other ones. And this is grasslands, and we have got fields there where there is a planting of crops. So this is a dispersed settlement. And then we have the urban settlement shown there, in contrast to the rural settlement. Let's have the zoom there, right? When you look closely here on this picture, you can see that there are nice and attractive high-rise buildings. The houses are clustered together, and this is typical of an urban settlement. So, as you can see, the place below is more attractive. This is attractive, is it? So this is more attractive, and this is less attractive, is it? So you find that young people want to move, especially young people want to move from here to the cities in search of a better life. Younger people seek jobs, better services, and entertainment which aren't available in rural areas, and live in pursuit of the promise and live in pursuit of the areas and live in pursuit of the promise of better opportunities in urban areas. This, however, decreases the population in rural areas and leaves behind mostly aged people. So the elderly are left in the rural areas, and what young people usually do is they send their children to stay with their elderly parents in the rural area. So you'll find that there are elderly people and the very young children staying in the rural areas. So this affects also the economy, because those who are more energetic and young are going to the cities, and the rural areas are left with the old and the young. So this decreases population in rural areas and leaves behind mostly aged population, as I mentioned earlier on. Let's have a look at the different push and pull factors. That leads us to the next slide. If you look at this slide here, you see that we have a table here and we've got push factors on the left and pull factors on the right, which, and we look at this, there are only 3 of them. We've got lack of job opportunities is one of the push factors that pushes people out of the rural areas. Less work available. Then we have lower wages. We have little variety in job types. Then the pull factors that are attracting people to the urban areas. We've got more work available, better wages, regular income, greater variety of job types. So it is portrayed here. It is portrayed here in this illustration to show why young people move out of the rural areas to the urban areas. As you can see here, it is summarized here as follows: few jobs, war, some rural areas lack defense. So you find that most of the security is not there, like in the urban areas. So there might be people attacking each other, like in those farming communities where people are having rivalries because of the grazing land and so forth. There will be people fighting. This mostly happens in East Africa when you talk of the Maasai cattle herders. War, then famine. You find that there is not enough rainfall and there is not enough food to eat. But in the cities, people are working and they can actually afford to buy food from the shops. Whereas the subsistence farmers in the rural areas might not be able to buy their own food because they depend on the food that they produce in their on their land. So they will be running away from famine. Then we've got natural disasters. There is not much of rapid response programs to disasters in the rural areas. So people might suffer a lot from flooding. They suffer a lot from a lot of natural disasters. It might be earthquakes in other regions of the world, and people don't get much help like the people in the cities. And then what are the pull factors here? On the other side, in the urban areas, we've got better healthcare, job opportunities, education, and we have safety. So when we talk of safety, we are talking of the police is adequate. You find that the policing level is higher in cities than in the rural areas, and there are readily available organizations to help people in terms of disasters. All right, let's move ahead. We are still continuing with push factors here. Reasons why people move away from the rural areas. We have natural phenomena or disasters such as erratic weather caused by climate change, which have a greater impact and affect primary activities. So we have drought, we've got floods, we have soil erosion, we've got pests. So when there is drought crops can't grow, floods, people die, crops are damaged, livestock dies. Then we have soil erosion. Most of the nutrients are eroded away and the land becomes unproductive. The pests, I think most of us who watch news, we have noted that there was a pest problem in countries in the Eastern African region, like Kenya, Tanzania, and of late there is also a problem of the swarm of locusts in countries like India and Pakistan. So these are the problems. They destroy the crops and people will end up with no food to eat. Then the pull factors, natural phenomena or disasters have a smaller impact. Why? Because urban areas focus on secondary and tertiary activities which aren't impacted as much as primary activities. Government helps during droughts, floods, and fires. So the help is not that much in the rural areas than in the, because most of the time in the rural areas also you find that the areas are not accessible. So that hampers any efforts to help the people there. Let's continue with the push factors. Degradation of land through poor farming methods, mechanization and consolidation of farms, fewer job opportunities because of decreased need of labor, too many people to support with not enough income and food. Increasing costs for farming, forestry, fishing, and mining result in layoffs, political conflict, and unrest. So you find that most of the political commotion during elections or between rival parties usually occur in the rural areas. And this is mostly because of the levels of education there as well, that people are not really informed. They can't really live side by side with people they consider their enemies, unlike in the cities. So the pull factors, we have assistance from organizations like churches, welfare organizations, and soup kitchens. Right, push factors, reasons people move away. Right, So lack of services and infrastructure in the rural areas like water. You find that water is very inadequate in the rural areas because usually there is no piped water. There is no running water there. People are depending on wells, boreholes, the water from the rivers and so forth. Electricity, the most rural areas are not on the national grid. So you find that people are not having electricity. They are actually using firewood to cook. Transport is also a problem because usually of the state of the roads there and the state of the economy. People don't have money to buy cars. Those who have cars don't want to go there with their cars because they see that their cars get damaged because of the poor roads. And then communication networks. We find that some areas do not have boosters for these cell phone companies and there is a poor network there. Once you go there, you find that your phone cannot even connect. Then sewage services are almost non-existent. Education can be very poor because most teachers do not want to be there in the rural areas. They want to teach in the well-developed areas, like in the urban areas. Then healthcare, the same applies to the doctors. They also want to be in the urban areas and not in the rural areas, so the healthcare suffers and the infrastructure is also poor. Then pull factors on the other side, there is water is provided by municipalities, electricity is also provided, transport is provided, and there is also private and public taxis and so forth. Communication network is there, sewage, education. You know that all these universities like Wits, UJ and so forth are in Joburg and other cities. Then healthcare is also in excellent condition, though they might complain that the healthcare is not okay in the cities but it is far much better than in the rural areas. Rural settlement, let's look at more push factors with issues relating to quality of life. These issues are lack of housing in the rural areas, lack of recreational facilities, entertainment and social interaction. Poverty limits the possibility of improving standard of living. Then in the urban areas, we have got more and better housing. We have more entertainment attraction and lifestyle associated with the bright lights, recreation and social interaction. And we have better wages in the cities. So people can actually improve their standard of living. What is standard of living? Here we have got our definition here. It is the quality of life experienced by people and their ability to be able to access their basic needs. What are the consequences of this rural-urban migration? I think you may safely assume, or you may safely have, right? Farms are abandoned and neglected. That's one consequence that we have. The second is shops and businesses have fewer customers. So this is actually a ripple effect, and it's actually affecting all the other industries. When the farms are abandoned, there are no more people to buy and businesses have fewer customers. And then when businesses have fewer customers, the businesses and services have to close down. So this is what we may call the domino effect. People live for urban areas, mostly the young. Fewer services are needed in the rural areas now because there are no more people there. Rural towns decline. So because of that, we find that the towns become ghost towns where there will be no people and there will be abandoned buildings and so forth. So aged population is left behind to live in those abandoned buildings, in those abandoned areas. Next slide. Right, here we are. We want to go on to look further on the consequences of rural-urban migration. So an aging population is left behind when younger people leave for urban opportunities. This means that mostly older people live in the villages, and this results in a ripple effect of issues. Farms are neglected or abandoned. Productivity in farms declines because of smaller yields, because the labor moved to urban areas. Villages or small country towns decline because there are fewer farmers to support shops and schools. So these are the ripple effects that we have because of the rural-urban migration. Then a decline in the number of wage earners. Let's have one point at a time. A decline in the number of wage earners decreases the area's buying power. Shops are affected because customers are reduced, and in turn the shops decrease staff and reduce stock. People are forced to travel further for services, which affects the local economy. Ghost towns develop because small country towns decline economically. Property values fall and people become stuck. So when you look in the rural areas, mostly you find that because of this factor here, property values fall, it actually results in people not building expensive structures in the rural areas. By so doing, it means the area is always looking poor and unwelcoming, and it is very it is actually pushing especially the young to the brighter side of life, which is in the cities. So even fewer jobs are now available on farms and in the small country towns. Rural areas become a downward spiral of poverty and neglect. So this is why the young people will live and go and try and make a living in the towns and cities. What is a ghost town? It is a deserted town with few or no remaining inhabitants. Right, settlements. In continuation here, the effects caused by rural depopulation extend to the urban areas. An influx of young people into urban areas has its own ripple effect on issues. So the effects are not only confined to the rural areas where we said there will be poverty. The effects are also go to the urban areas where the young people go, because there are going to be more young people and fewer jobs in the urban areas, and that is going to cause another form of problems like crime. We're also going to have unemployment issues. So we have a shortage of employment opportunities that develops in the urban areas. Then cities become overcrowded and insufficient housing leaves homeless and informal settlements to develop. This is something that you know is a trend that a phenomenon that you know around your cities where you are. The informal settlements where people suffer because there is no electricity sometimes, and there is also a problem of poor housing. They are just building their shacks with maybe metal sheets, and some are just using some poles and plastic. And then you find that people are building their shacks next to the rivers, and they suffer when the river is in floods. The infrastructure can't cope with the increased population. People who are unable to find employment may turn to crime. A shortage of dumping grounds leads to land pollution near informal settlements. Let's look at this cam is still loading. I don't know why it's taking time. Right, we've got an activity here, a smart lab activity that we need to look at. Right, we have push factors in this heart, and we've got pull factors there, and we need to take them and put them in the proper structure there. The pull factors and the push factors. So let's start by looking at, let's say, mechanization of farms. Do you think that is a push factor or a pull factor? When you mechanize a farm, what happens? Many people lose jobs and machines are replacing people. So let's see if it pushes people. Let's say this is right. Let's see if it pushes people. Yes, it's accepted. And let's look at another one. Government assistance, is it a push factor? No, it isn't. Less job opportunity, is it a pull factor? No, it isn't. You can see that it's being refused. And then reasons to move people to urban areas. Let's say, oh, it has been refused. So let's put it here. It has been accepted. Better quality of life. Is it a push factor? No, it is actually a pull factor. Then let's continue. Reasons people move away from rural areas. It's accepted. Overall better opportunities. Is it a push factor? No. So that means it is a pull factor. So you can hear our chim there. Our chim friend is yelling, accepting our options. If we don't, then it is refusing. More job opportunities is a pull factor. Degradation of land, it is a push factor. Low standard of living, it is a push factor. Government assistance is actually a pull factor to the urban areas. Lack of infrastructure is a wider infrastructure range is a pull factor. Less job opportunities is a, and we are done. Let's congratulate ourselves. So we've done this game. So when you want to continue playing it, you can reset and you redo the game. Let's go to the next slide. That was a refresher course. We did refresh our minds there. Then we need to go on and look at more effects. Over time, rural areas have responded to changes in the international economy. In the past, many rural households in South Africa relied on subsistence farming. We talked about subsistence farming in the previous lesson. So we talked about this. And at grade 12 now we know what is an economy. We don't need to dwell on that. So, however, monetary income increased with the growth of the migrant labor system, and people left for urban areas to earn an income to support their families. So what do we call the migrant labor system? So the monetary income increased with the growth of the migrant labor system, and people left for urban areas to earn an income to support their families left behind in the rural areas. So you find that after all, the increase in this migrant labor system provides the much needed labor for the growth of the economy of the countries. So, and it also provides a relief, or it provides a source of income for those people that are left in the rural areas, as they are sent money and groceries by the people in the cities to help them survive. Let's go ahead. Rural settlement issues. In time, the pressure on the land increased and fewer people, rural households, could rely on subsistence farming alone. Many households began to adapt their activities to earn further income through, for example, handicrafts, food stalls, tea bins, and cafes. Rural areas also have been more integrated with activities such as transport and communication, and the general public became more aware of the need in poorer rural areas. So you find that people are now doing some activities other than just farming. People are doing other activities like handicrafts. They have food stores where they sell foods, maybe along the highways and so forth. And they also provide shebins, where even people from the cities would want to go to the countryside, and they go there and drink in the shebins. Then cafes as well. People want to go to the countryside and enjoy there and be away from the hustle and bustle of the cities. Various strategies can be introduced to address and prevent rural depopulation and encourage rural growth. Programs to eradicate rural poverty and overcome rural settlement issues have been put in place by the government. So we have got examples of Agenda 21, which is a broad strategy to develop rural areas in a sustainable way. So we are talking of sustainable development here, which is actually aimed at keeping people in the rural areas instead of having them flocking to the cities and resulting in overcrowding in the cities and doing crime as well. So sustainable, this Agenda 21 was established. So it has been established in an effort to keep or attract people back to the rural areas. We have other programs here that are being implemented to address the effects of rural depopulation, like the Comprehensive Rural Development Program, CRDP. The aim was to meet basic human needs, to develop infrastructure, and to encourage entrepreneurship. Then we have another program here, which is called the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform, which has the aims of developing infrastructure to address basic human needs, encourage youth skills development and employment through a national rural youth service corps, promote land rights and tenure security for rural people. Then we have the Recapitalization and Development Program, which is aimed at better employment opportunities, improved food security, the construction of irrigation schemes. Then we have the Land Reform Program, which is to acquire and redistribute farms. So I think we are all aware of the other program that the government is planning to implement, which is the acquisition of land or acquisition of land, appropriation of land without compensation, which is also aimed at this land reform. For a strategy to be successful, the local community must be consulted and the strategy should be acceptable to them. So all those strategies that we talked about cannot just be implemented. People have to be consulted first. The chiefs, the headmen and so forth, they have to be consulted and then they have to accept them for them to be implemented. The local community's basic needs must be taken into account for development to happen. This includes food, safe water, sanitation, housing, employment, and access to education and healthcare. Services like electricity and roads and facilities such as schools and hospitals should be put in place to encourage people to stay in the area. When people are building roads or clinics, local people should be trained and used so that they can learn few skills, new skills and trades to earn a living in the area. So that's the other idea, where when there is a development program that is happening in the area, local people have to be employed. The strategy must be self-sustainable. This can be done by using the skills and talents of the local people. The strategy should rely on not rely only on agriculture. Shouldn't. So there must be diversification of that economy. No, don't only put strategies that only promote agriculture. However, food security can be improved by educating farmers in the use of better farming methods, tools, and seeds. Improvement must be visible in the short term to prevent people from leaving if they don't see immediate results. Entrepreneurs must be supported so that secondary activities are brought into rural areas. Industries should be encouraged to use local raw materials and skills to ensure employment. Right, we need to move a little bit faster with our slides here. We have a concept which is called a new ruralism, which is a strategy that is encouraged, that's encouraging to alleviate the effects of rural depopulation. New ruralism is when people move back into rural areas to escape the crime, congestion, noise, and pollution in the city to the quiet, open, green areas, peace, space, and privacy of the rural areas. This is a form of counter-urbanization. So when we say counter-urbanization, we are saying this is another alternative to urbanization. Instead of always developing the urban areas, there is also an effort to develop the rural areas and make them more attractive. Then, new ruralism is encouraged because it renews economic and growth in the rural areas. In developed countries, counter-urbanization is becoming increasingly popular. People from the city move into areas just outside the urban area. This is made possible thanks to the improvement in information technology, where business people are able to operate in remote areas. So now with companies, and we are well aware of what COVID is doing now, you know that people are working from home. So because of this new ruralism, you find that people can actually go and stay in their rural areas while positively contributing to their places of employment online. So this is also very important to understand. So let's look at another game. For the sake of time, let us skip this and come to this. We're going to do an activity in a minute's time. So let's look at the social justice issues in rural areas. In many rural areas, the inhabitants don't enjoy a standard of living high enough to meet even their basic needs. According to our Bill of Rights, all people have the right to their basic needs being met. All people have the right to water. They have a right to food. They have a right to shelter. So these are actually jeopardized because of the poverty that is in the rural areas. So we need to have social justice to solve that problem. Social justice issues are problems that infringe on a person's standard of living. So we have got here, which is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Food and water come as the basic need. Before anyone does anything or aspire to be anything, they should have food, water, shelter, warmth. They should have safety. Once these needs are satisfied, you find that a person now have greater needs, and there is now need for security. Once the security needs are satisfied, a person will have a higher level of needs. So you need to have these satisfied first before you get those. Then once these are satisfied, you need another one. And this is the highest need, which is inner fulfillment. That is when you are now doing like charity, you are just helping others and so forth. So let's just do, we are going to continue with this lesson because we haven't finished everything. We are going to go to the slides that we didn't deal with on Monday at 10 o'clock. And now we just need to do one question that we are going to focus on and just test if we understood. So we just want to answer this, or maybe we're just going to take two questions. Yeah, two questions. Dash factors are responsible for people moving from rural to urban areas. What are those factors that are responsible for people moving from rural to urban areas? And here is written urbanization, depopulation, government, push and pull. Can you try those and just scribble on a piece of paper, and then you will compare with the answer that we're going to show. I hope you have already given yourselves the answers that you think are okay. Now let's check if you are having the right answer. Let's open here. This is the answer here. So you have the answer is D, which is push and pull factors. These are the factors that are responsible for people moving from rural areas. Then let's look at another question, question number 2. Right, let's look at this. Right, Is it too late to introduce strategies to address and prevent rural depopulation and encourage rural growth? Is it too late to introduce strategies? True or false? It's a very simple question. Right, let's look at the answer. It is B. It is false. It is not too late to address the issues of rural-urban migration. Students, we had a very good time together. Next week on Monday, we are going to meet again at 10 o'clock sharp. And we are going to start with the slides that we could not finish here. And we are going to look at urban settlements after we have completed on this slide. So thank you very much and keep studying for the exams. And I wish you good luck and have a good weekend and enjoy your weekend. Thank you very much.